like my ducks have come home to roost. It was revealed and a bit of a scandal broke out the other day when I did the video on the Vox AC30, and it was pointed out that they can't all be the best amps in the Helix, can they? And I kind of thought, okay, there are a few videos where I've done about the things that I don't use super much in the Helix, or like the Marshall Plexi, which is based on a slightly odd amp anyway. It's like a transitional amp. There are a few videos that I've done where I've kind of highlighted some amps that I think, like the 5150, which is not necessarily super well loved on the forums or on the Facebook page. So today, and then I thought about it again, I thought, well, why don't I now spend some time with some of the amps which I've never really used for whatever reason, and any time that I did flip between them, I thought I don't really like the sound of those. And so top of that list are the Supro and the Stone EH185, which is based on the Gibson E something. So actually, looking into this amp, I think this is probably an amp that I should dig into a bit more, because it's not only the amp that Charlie Christian used to use, the jazz guitarist. This is a super old amp from like the 30s, but also Josh Homme from the Queens of the Stone Age used it, so obviously there's not much crossover tone-wise between those two. So I figured this might be a fairly versatile amp. Other amps that I don't really use at all, or have never really checked out properly, are the Voltage Queen, the Who-Watt 100. These ones at the top of the list, basically. Those are kind of blind spots for me, and you know, certainly I wouldn't put them at the top of my list of the amps that I like on there. I think this is an opportunity to kind of explore these tones. I feel like these ones are sort of, I've seen other videos about them where they talk about the Supro being like a bit of a secret weapon. I'm not sure, so we'll dig into that in this video a little bit and see what it is that it can do. But I kind of think about these older amps like the Fender Champ or this Gibson or this Supro as being sort of specialist, not the most versatile amps, is my thinking on this, but I could be totally wrong. Let me know if you've got your least favourite amps in the Helix, or your most favourite amps, whichever, or if you've got a job that you use any of these for. But the Supro, the Stone EH185, and I think the Victoria, what I'm going to dig into quickly on this video, I think probably spending more time on that Stone Age, because that is one that actually I thought probably I'm a little bit wrong about that one. I could find a use for that. So yeah, these could be totally your favourite amps, and I could be annoying you with this video. So let me know in the comments if you have a specific use for any of these amps that I'm going to be looking at today. But these are ones that do not make my list of the best amps in the Helix, or have not, because I've not really spent a load of time with them. So when you pull up the Supro, here is what you get if you pull it up in amp and cab form. Now the positive with the Supro is it doesn't take up too much DSP. Right, here's what you get when you pull up the Supro. So by default it's paired with a fairly old kind of style speaker. And I think actually this is partly responsible for how it sounds. The thing I think that some people might like about these amps is that they're that kind of rough and ready, kind of almost broken-ish sounding speakers. But what I was thinking is you could maybe pair that with a different speaker. But first of all, the range of gain that we've got is... not massive. I'm going to turn the reverb down, obviously. But I think you can afford to turn that drive up basically as much as you like, but it's going to be sort of flubby-ish. The Rio amp I think did have a bass and treble. And you've got this tone control as well, which, let's just listen to what that does. Basically rolls off highs. anyway, so what I think is that you can get way better tones out of it. I'll just show you my favorites. If you change the speaker, so this is... It doesn't completely transform it to be something that I want to use all the time, but here's the settings. The bass I've just taken down a little bit, the tone I've taken down to 8.3, the drive's all the way up, treble at 5.5, and then you'll see the speaker that I've decided to use with it, because it's a dark-ish sounding amp in my opinion. I've chosen to opt for like a Vox Bluebell, Celestium Blue, 57 dynamic, one of the brighter mics. Brought the distance up closer so we get as much kind of presence as we can out of it. Reflections up to 20%. So that's, I think, a fairly responsive is what I would call that amp wise. So yeah, don't be afraid to go crazy with that drive setting, because it's not got loads of drive. I think it's just one tube or a couple. And then SD1 in front does that sort of thing. But to me, it's that sort of semi-broken sounding guitar sound, which definitely could be useful if you're into some kind of punky stuff or more vintage sounding stuff. I think there's a lot of character to this, but it's not exactly what I'd go for every time. Now, in contrast, here's the Stone Age 185. I'll just pull up the stock settings for that as well. So that comes like this. And again, that's a tone which doesn't really speak to me. It doesn't sound like something that I'd want on a recording in general. You know, it sounds again like that sort of really retro, semi-broken guitar tone. But, you know, with a certain aesthetic, maybe Filtertrons or something like that, and maybe if it was like a vintage, you know, punk style recording, you could use that. The thing that, again, is making such a massive difference to the tone is the 1x12 field coil speaker, which again is like a really old speaker. So the thing that I did again was, if I just show you what I pulled up and what you heard in the intro there as a favorite, is these settings. So the drive up at 8, so you've got actually quite a lot of drive on this amp. So when you open up that drive, you actually get a really kind of screaming classic rock tone, I think. Which I wasn't aware of, and I don't think you'd have thought necessarily from the default settings that it had that much potential. So, you know, a real big possibility with that amp, actually. I put all of the tone stack to kind of 5.5, the treble all the way at 10. because I think that added some kind of nice presence rather than anything too brittle. I think it's a high pass treble. That's not what I mean, is it? Is it a high pass? Do I mean low pass filter? I don't know. High end anyway, in like a... And leave the presence where it is, and I think the bass... has like an inductor to ground, was what I read about this, and this can really beef up the sound. But I think really kind of classic rock tones there. And again, one of the key points about this is I'm changing the stock cab to be the 2x12 Bluebell with the 57, because these older amps for some reason seem to be a little bit on the darker side. Probably as they age, you get, you know, component drift in these bits and pieces. 57 dynamic, 20% reflections, 1 inch away. But I thought that that really did, to me, sound like something that I could use for all kinds of things in the rock realm. So this is an amp which has quickly been knocked off of my worst list just by spending a bit of time with it. But again, so when you pull up the stock settings, what you're going to be greeted with is this. And as you turn up the gain, let's hear what happens. So all I'd suggest is if you just make the quick adjustment of changing it over to a more capable speaker, like a 2x12 Bluebell, then I think quickly you get a way more usable tone. So that was a quick tweak that takes that from my worst amps list to not the worst. So this Voltage Queen from the Electro King is also based on a Gibson GA40, which I think is one of their later amps. And again, stock settings are going to sound like this. And we're paired up here with a US Deluxe speaker, which is probably going to be more forgiving than those older speakers that were in the other amps, and that might be partly why this might be more pleasant. That's got quite a lot of bass, which I like. A tone knob which is basically just darkening things way up. And I guess as we increase the gain, we got what, like a double gain stage here. Actually, I think what this will be is these are jumpered. So I think the original amp had a mic input as well, right? So the amount of drive that we got on drive 2, quite a bit more drive on drive 1, I think. And then is this like completely parallel, or does this just give us way more drive? So this is an amp that I've clearly just been flat out wrong about, which is fine, because this has clearly got some really cool tones in it, and quite a bit of versatility. What might I do with this? I think it's sounding pretty good as it is, to be honest. I think this is probably one of Gibson's more favoured amps that are out there. Obviously this is the Electro King from Victoria, which is, they say, an idealised version of the Gibson GA40. For more chime, maybe I'd use a Bluebell. Let's try this, the 57. No, I do think they had a better choice there with the Deluxe. Maybe I'd try a condenser. Or we could go really wild, try something like a V30. But clearly a lot of possibilities with that particular model. Stock setting. Again, I feel free to say that that is almost certainly an amp model that I should 100% have not ignored, and that's again come way off my worst list. I still feel like the Supro is not really Let's change this cab up and see if we can get sort of a more scooped amp there. See, I still don't think it's doing much of what I want. Although, you know, one of the real positives of the Supro is that it uses hardly any DSP relative to the other models. So maybe I'll save that as a favourite as well, actually. That's a dog. But anyway, yeah, let me know your worst amps in the Helix, and let me know if you found a use for this Supro that... I think I actually quite like that with the 4x12 V30 cab. I feel like that's doing something that I could definitely use. Anyway, but yeah, thanks for stopping by. Those are the amp models that I didn't think were the best in the Helix, and turns out they're actually quite usable. probably. Let me know if you want me to drop this preset into the folder. That's what you heard in the opening, this lead tone in the middle. And then this was the rhythm tone. And then the clean tone. And all of them I think are slightly rawer, kind of more natural guitar tones than I would normally use. So I think maybe there's totally an argument that you might even prefer these tones to the tones that I normally make anyway, I guess. And the more I play them, the more I think I'm completely wrong about all of this. Cheers!